Hey everyone, this is Trent from ExtremeRigs.net, and today I want to talk to you about a build project we finished recently. This monstrosity you see in front of you is otherwise known as Project Thief. This is a CaseLabs TX10 that has been customized. And it's been quite an epic project. If some of you are long-term followers of the channel, you may remember us reviewing this case several years ago. And it took a long time for this project to come to completion. And that was really because the project was so complicated. This is not just one computer. This is two full computers with 4 graphics cards each. It's fully water-cooled. There's a ton of radiators, there's a ton of fans, there's over 50 fans. And it's just this crazy over-the-top build. And you know, after I published the review, there were quite a few comments on the channel about, you know, well, this is just kind of dumb kind of thing. And truth be told, it kind of was. So if you are considering doing something like this, the first thing I would say is just don't. Stop now before it's too late, because it's not a good idea. So let's run through what we did with the TX10. The first thing you may notice are these wooden panels in the front. These are custom handmade Cocobolo panels, and they're carved with the symbol of the Thieves Guild from Skyrim. Obviously Project Thief, Thieves Guild kind of lines up, right? Down here we also have a custom made Cocobolo panel that houses the temperature sensors. We have 2 computers in here. One was designed to be my workstation, and one was designed to be a Windows gaming / video editing / everything kind of rig. As you can see, it's really pretty heavy. It has over 10 liters of coolant in it, and although CaseLabs makes it easy to use and build, it's still not an easy thing to do. There we go. You can see a bit better now. So all of these panels open up pretty easily. They all clip on, which is kind of one of CaseLabs' signature designs. As we unclip them, you'll start to see some of the radiators. This top one is a MORA 140.9, which is the equivalent of 3 420mm radiators. So that's just a huge amount of radiator right there, and that cools only 1 out of the 4 loops. This is the main workstation side. In here we have a Rampage 4 Extreme motherboard, which is fully water-cooled. The MOSFETs, the south bridge, even the memory, both sides of the memory. So you have 4 DIMMs on each side, giving you 32 gig of memory, running quite quickly at 2133. And then of course the CPU itself too is water-cooled. And that's a 4930K on this side. The graphics cards here are 2 7990s. Now, as you might have heard, I said quad graphics cards. For those of you who don't know, a 7990 is a dual graphics card. So it has the cores and the memory from 2 7970s combined on one card. And why would you do that? Well, maybe because the outputs are better. Generally you won't get as good an overclock. But on the dual GPU cards, AMD gives you better outputs. You'll also see 2 massive reservoirs here, filled with red coolant. These are EK 400mm reservoirs, and they're hardwired into the chamber, so there's no real mounting, but they're secured because of the hard tubing. Everything is hard tubed with the exception of stuff outside of the motherboard chamber, and things that go to quick releases. So for example, these graphics cards, which are on their own loop, can easily be pulled out of the loop with the quick disconnects. So you can remove those graphics cards in about 2 minutes. If we move on to the other side, well, first let's look at the rest. Now you can start to see that there are 2 white radiators in the front here. These are Alphacool UT60 radiators, so 60mm thick radiators. Normally those are considered quite thick, but in a case this big, you can see that even with push-pull fans making for a total of 110 millimeters, they look almost kind of slim. And that's really part of the problem with this case. If you want it to look good, it's hard to fill it up and not leave it looking empty. If you look at any TX10 builds, often they look empty because of this. In addition, we have sleeved cables, and we also have a custom-made back panel here. This is veneered wood. It's a bird's eye maple veneer, and that was custom made too. Then underneath you see these white boxes. These are D5 pumps with EK white acetyl tops on them. Again, these are not mounted in a traditional sense. They're mounted with hardline tubing. This is the Monsoon hardline tubing system, where the fittings are so strong that there's a demo on YouTube of them holding 30-pound dumbbells. They're that strong. So these guys, they're literally held up by hardline tube. So 3 pumps, 2 pumps are used for one loop, and 1 pump drives its own loop. At the bottom, we then have a XT45 Alphacool radiator. This is a 560 size, so a massive radiator. And as you can see, those are Gentle Typhoon fans. So because they're 120 millimeter, we use 120 millimeter to 140 millimeter adapters. And again, these radiators are in push-pull, like the UT60s. And they also come with quick disconnect. So this radiator can be pulled out of here for dusting within a minute, which is really nice. If we move on to the other side, we'll show you the windows side. You can see just how heavy this thing is. It's a good thing it has wheels, but even with the wheels, it's fairly hard to push around. In fact, if you think you can lift this thing up the stairs, you're going to be surprised, because you cannot carry this unless you are kind of a world champion weightlifter, and even then, I kind of suspect you may not be able to do that. Just because of the sheer size of it, the depth, the width, it's an awkward size to carry. Even with 2 guys, it was really hard. So this was the Windows-based gaming rig. It's kind of hard to see in this light because this is so dark, but you'll see a very contrasting theme here. The other side was very light. It had white acetyl used, or it had plexi and nickel. So this side was designed to be very different, and the idea was the light and dark themes of the thief's life. So the thief, during the day might be some law-abiding looking citizen, right? Doing his job, and then at night he goes around and steals stuff. So this was designed to have the kind of the dark side theme, if you will. So on this side we still have an X79 base system. This is an EVGA X79 Dark. Again, it's fully water-cooled. This time it only has 16 gigabytes of memory. Cooled with the EK Waterblocks. The CPU is also cooled with an EK Supremacy Evo block. And the motherboard cooling is provided by custom Kathmandu blocks for both Southbridge and VRM. You'll see 4 graphics cards here. These are AMD Radeon R9 290s in quad crossfire, again with sleeve cables, and an EK semi-parallel bridge. Again, you'll see that we continue the theme with the dual loops. The graphics cards get their own loop, while the CPU, motherboard, and memory get their own loop. And in the front here we have 2 more Alphacool UT60 radiators in push and pull. These are 360 size, just like the other. So where I can, I try to mirror the build, but with subtly kind of differentiating styles. And again, at the back here, there's another custom panel, which is again veneered, but this time it's veneered with ebony. Underneath we have the pumps. They're really hard to see now, but there's a double D5 pump, and then there's a single D5 pump for the graphics cards. At the back here we have an EVGA 1500 watt power supply, because those AMD graphics cards are just so power hungry. And at the bottom we have another 560 radiator, again by Alphacool. This one is the Monster radiator, which is 80 millimeters thick. So this case is so large that you can fit an 80 millimeter radiator plus push and pull fans plus 140 to 120 millimeter adapters and still have another radiator on the other side and have clearance space between them. It's just an enormous case. Now each of these chambers is also lit up by LEDs, which are remote controlled by infrared. And the fans are all currently running on EK Ascendancy fan controllers. We're going to be swapping those out with Aquaros soon because there were some beta testing issues with those. The entire thing was designed to be silent, really. You know, running under 1200 RPM on the fans and still giving really low coolant temperatures compared to ambient. So the idea was really no compromise. You know, you could be silent, you could have maximum performance. And of course, in order to do that, you had to spend a lot of money and have this huge monster case. Now the reality is, you could go a lot smaller than this and still have silent temperatures, silent fans and coolant temperatures that, you know, are only a couple of degrees worse. The deltas here are, to be honest, 1 to 2 degrees. It's really silly. So if I were to do this again, I would not do it the same way. I would absolutely do 2 different systems. Even if you get a system, each system kind of at least half as big as this, it makes your life so much easier if you separate them out. And that's pretty much it on Thief. As always, if you like the stuff we're putting out there, subscribe to the channel. That way you'll help us and you'll also find out what more stuff is coming through. You can also like us on Facebook, you can follow us on Twitter, all that good stuff. And you can check out the website. We have a lot of reviews, we have news, we have just about everything. ExtremeRigs.net.